August 12th, 1945. The White House, 11 o'clock at night. The Oval Office is never truly dark. But tonight, there is a particular quality to the silence. A weight that settles over the mahogany desk, over the leather chair, over the man who sits there alone with the desk lamp, throwing a small circle of yellow light across papers that no president should ever have to read. Harry S. Truman, 33rd President of the United States, removes his glasses and rubs the bridge of his nose. His eyes are red, not from crying, though perhaps that would be easier. Red from staring too long at photographs that do not seem real, cannot be real, but are aerial reconnaissance images from Hiroshima, taken August 7th, one day after the bomb fell. The first photograph shows a city, or what was a city. Now it is a pale circular scar roughly 4 miles across, punctuated by the black stumps of a few reinforced concrete buildings that somehow remained standing. Everything else, gone. Not destroyed in the way cities are destroyed by conventional bombing, building by building, block by block. Simply gone, as if a giant hand reached down and erased it. The second photograph, taken from lower altitude, shows details that Truman wishes he could unsee. Shadows on pavement. Dark, human-shaped shadows where people stood when the flash came. The people themselves vaporized. Only their shadows remain, burned into concrete that will outlast memory. He sets the photographs down carefully, as if they might shatter. On the desk beside them sits a document, fresh from the War Department, ink still sharp, words still capable of changing the world. At the top, stamped in red, top secret. Below that, a single line that makes his hands shake slightly. Third atomic weapon status. Assembly initiated. Truman reads it again. A third bomb, not theoretical, not someday. Now, being assembled right now in New Mexico by men who do not ask questions, who simply follow orders, who trust that their president knows what he is doing. Below the status line, another section. Target recommendations. Primary. Niigata, industrial port city. Northern Honshu, population approximately 150. Zen. Oil storage facilities. Shipbuilding yards. Rail junction. Minimal prior bombing damage. Clear target value. Alternate. Tokyo. Metropolitan area. Psychological impact maximum. Capital city. Already heavily damaged by incendiary raids. Secondary strike would demonstrate unlimited American capability. He closes his eyes, sees the numbers. 150,000 in Niigata. How many hundreds of thousands more in Tokyo? Human beings. Men, women, children who did not ask for this war, who simply woke up one morning and found themselves living in a nation that had chosen a path toward hell. And yet, his mind moves to other numbers. American casualties if an invasion of Japan becomes necessary. The War Department estimates range from 250,000 to 1 million. Boys from Missouri and Ohio and California who signed up to serve their country, who survived Europe or the Pacific Islands, who want nothing more than to go home to sweethearts and mothers and the lives they left behind. How many of them will die on Japanese beaches if he does not make this choice? Truman opens his eyes, reaches for a different folder. Casualty projections for Operation Downfall. The planned invasion of Japan. November 1945 for Kyushu. Spring 1946 for Honshu. The numbers swim on the page. Not just American dead, but Japanese. Estimates suggest millions of Japanese civilians will die defending their homeland with whatever weapons they can find. Bamboo spears, kitchen knives, bare hands, the atomic bomb, for all its horror, might be mercy compared to that. Might be. He is not certain, and that uncertainty sits in his chest like a stone. There is a Bible on his desk, always there, opened to Exodus. His eyes find a verse underlined in pencil. Thou shalt not kill. Simple words. Clear commandment. But here, in this office, with these photographs, with these decisions, nothing is simple anymore. A knock at the door. Soft. Respectful. But insistent. Come in. General George C. Marshall enters. Hat under his arm. Uniform immaculate despite the late hour. Marshall is a soldier's soldier. A man Truman trusts more than almost anyone. If Marshall says something is militarily necessary, it almost certainly is. But tonight, even Marshall looks tired. Tired in a way that goes beyond lack of sleep. Mr. President, I apologize for the hour. Sit down. George. Marshall sits, places a thin folder on the desk. Another report. More information. More decisions required. Sir, we need to discuss target selection for the third device. Time is becoming a factor. Truman nods slowly. Opens the folder. Inside, reconnaissance photographs of Niigata. Detailed images showing the port, the oil tanks, the industrial facilities that make it a military target, and beyond those facilities, neighborhoods, streets, houses where families live. Tell me about Niigata, he says quietly. Marshall leans forward slightly. His voice is measured, professional, but there is something underneath it. Something even this career military man cannot quite keep out of his tone. Northern Honshu. Sir, on the Sea of Japan. Significant oil storage and refining capacity. Major port for transport to the mainland. Rail hub connecting Honshu to Hokkaido. From a military standpoint, it is a valuable target. More importantly, it has been largely spared from conventional bombing. The visual impact of the atomic weapon will be clear and documentable. Visual impact. Documentable. Military language for 150,000 lives. And Tokyo. Tokyo has already suffered extensive damage from our firebombing campaign. Hundreds of thousands dead. Much of the city destroyed. Dropping an atomic weapon there would certainly make a statement about our capability and resolve. But the additional military value is questionable. Marshall pauses, then continues more quietly. Sir, if I may speak candidly, the Japanese are receiving our messages. Their diplomatic channels are active. There are indications, unconfirmed but credible, that the Emperor himself may be considering intervention for peace. Truman looks up sharply. Indications. Through Swiss intermediaries, through neutral channels, nothing definite. But the word surrender has been used. Conditionally, they want assurances about the Emperor's status. Conditionally. The word hangs in the air like smoke. Conditional surrender is not unconditional surrender. It means negotiations. It means delays. It means more American boys dying while diplomats argue over language. How long, sir? How long until we know if they will actually surrender? Marshall spreads his hands slightly. Days. Perhaps a week at most. But Mr. President, they may also be stalling, buying time to prepare for invasion. The longer we wait, the more entrenched their defenses become. And the third bomb, we can have it ready for operational deployment within 72 hours. Weather permitting. Strike capability by August 17th. That gives us a 5-day window. Truman leans back in his chair. The leather creaks softly. 5 days. Perhaps the Japanese will surrender in that time. Perhaps they will not. Perhaps 150,000 people in Niigata are living their last few days of normal life. Cooking dinner. Going to work. Putting children to bed. Completely unaware that in New Mexico, men are assembling the instrument of their death. Or perhaps those 150,000 people will live because diplomacy moves faster than bomb assembly. He does not know, cannot know, and that is the burden no training prepares you for. What would you do, George, if you were sitting in this chair? Marshall is silent for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice is very quiet. Mr. President, I would pray, and then I would make the best decision I could with imperfect information. That is all any of us can do. Truman nods slowly, looks again at the photographs of Hiroshima, thinks of Niigata's children, who look no different from American children except for the accident of where they were born. Continue the assembly, he says finally, but keep me informed minute by minute about any diplomatic developments. The moment, George, The moment we have anything approaching a genuine surrender offer. I want to know, before that bomb is loaded on an airplane, before it leaves American soil. Am I clear? Crystal clear. Sir. Marshall stands, gathers his papers. At the door, he pauses. Sir, for what it is worth, I believe you are making the right choice, keeping the option available while hoping we do not need to use it. After he leaves, Truman sits in silence, looks at a photograph on his desk. His wife Bess and daughter Margaret, taken last summer in Independence, Missouri. Normal people living normal lives while he sits here deciding the fates of cities. He pulls out a sheet of personal stationery, picks up his pen, begins to write in his small, neat hand. August 12th, 1945. They tell me a third bomb will be ready within days. I have seen what the first one did to Hiroshima. God help me. I may have to do it again. 1,000 miles away, in the New Mexico desert, another man is making different calculations. Kirtland Field, 10 miles south of Albuquerque. The air is still hot from the day's baking sun, but beginning to cool as evening settles over the base. In the distance, the Sandia Mountains are dark shapes against a darkening sky. A windowless concrete building sits behind two fences, both topped with barbed wire. Guards at the gate check identification 3 times. Inside, fluorescent lights cast everything in harsh white. The air smells of oil and metal and the peculiar electrical scent of precision instruments. Captain James Harrison stands at a workbench, looking down at components spread carefully on white cloth. He is 38 years old, married, father of 2. 5 years ago, he was teaching high school chemistry in Columbus, Ohio. Now he is assembling the 3rd atomic bomb. This is not his first time. He assembled the device tested at Trinity Site in July, watched it turn the desert to glass. He prepared the bomb that destroyed Nagasaki 3 days ago. You would think repetition makes it easier. It does not. His team is small, 6 men, each chosen for technical skill and security clearance. They have worked together for months now, developing a rhythm, a shared language of precise movements and quiet confirmations. Sergeant Ed Walsh, 45, from Boston, stands across the table checking circuitry with a multimeter. Walsh has 3 daughters, 7, 5, and 2 years old. He carries their photograph in his breast pocket, takes it out sometimes during breaks, stares at it without speaking. Lieutenant Robert Chen, 28, California-born, Chinese-American, runs calculations at a desk in the corner. His parents came from Guangdong Province 40 years ago, built a restaurant in San Francisco. Chen has degrees in physics and engineering. The United States government trusts him to build atomic bombs, but his parents had to live in an internment camp for Japanese Americans because someone in Washington could not tell the difference. Technician Frank Morrison, 50 years old, from Houston, is the oldest man on the team. He has grandchildren, a boy and a girl, both under 5. He talks about them constantly. What they said, what they did, how they are growing. Tonight he is quiet. Harrison surveys the components, the bomb casing, olive drab and squat, sits on a wheeled cradle. It looks like something from a machine shop, not a weapon that can erase a city. Around it, laid out with surgical precision, explosive lenses that must detonate in perfect synchronization, firing circuits that must function with microsecond accuracy, the nested shells that will compress the core to critical mass. The core itself has not yet arrived. The plutonium sphere, machined to perfection at Los Alamos, is still in transit under armed guard. When it arrives tomorrow, they will have everything needed to complete assembly. 72 hours from green light to deployment. Walsh looks up from his meter, catches Harrison's eye. Cap. The firing circuit checks are complete. Sequence looks clean. Good. Log it and move to the lens verification. Walsh hesitates. Cap. Can I ask you something? Harrison knows what is coming. Has been expecting it. Go ahead. Think they will really use this one. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the room goes quiet. Chen stops his calculations. Morrison looks up from the detonator he is inspecting. Harrison chooses his words carefully. That decision gets made in Washington. Not here, but we are building it. Walsh says, we are the ones putting it together. Does not that make us part of the decision? Harrison sets down the tool he was holding, looks at each man in turn. Listen, he says quietly. Every one of us signed up for this. Every one of us knew what we were doing. We are building weapons. That is the job. Whether they get used, where they get used, why they get used. Those are command decisions. We follow orders. Chen speaks up from his desk, voice soft but clear. My people, the Chinese, the Japanese killed millions. Nanking. Unit 731. Things worse than bombs. But this, his hand waves vaguely at the casing. This feels different. Morrison finally breaks his silence. My grandson Billy is 7 years old. He likes toy soldiers and ice cream, and his mother reading him stories at bedtime. Japanese kids are 7 years old too. They like, I do not know, whatever Japanese kids like, but they are kids. You know, the fluorescent lights hum somewhere in the building. A telephone rings and stops. Harrison pulls a photograph from his own pocket. 2 children, a boy and a girl, squinting into sun in front of a white house. His son Michael, 9. His daughter Susan, 6. Taken last summer, the last time he was home. Yeah, he says quietly. I know. Walsh crosses his arms, leans against the workbench. So what do we do? Cap. Slow down. Make a mistake in the assembly that pushes the timeline back. Harrison's head snaps up. No, absolutely not. We do our jobs correctly. If this bomb does not work, they will just build another one and send a different team. And those men will have the same questions we do. We do not get to make policy by sabotaging equipment. That is not how this works. Then how does it work? Morrison asks. Because right now it feels like we are just following orders. And that is starting to sound like what the other side says. The parallel to German soldiers, to the Nuremberg defense, hangs unspoken but clear. Harrison is quiet for a long moment. Then he speaks, and his voice carries weight the others have not heard before. It works like this. We build the bomb correctly because that is our duty. We trust that the men in Washington, the men who see the whole picture, will make the right call about whether to use it. And we pray. We pray that the Japanese surrender before this thing has to fly. We pray that diplomacy moves faster than our work. And if it does not, we live with what we have done, and we try to be better men for the rest of our lives. That is all we can do. The room is silent. Finally, Chen speaks. You ever think about what it looks like down there? When one of these goes off, Harrison has thought about little else for 3 days. I have seen the reports, and it is exactly as bad as you imagine. Worse. Probably. Heat flash that vaporizes people instantly if they are close enough. Blast wave that shreds everything for miles. Fires that burn for days. Radiation that kills slowly if the blast does not kill fast. Children blinded by the flash. Mothers searching for children in rubble that used to be neighborhoods. Then why? Walsh's voice is almost a whisper. Why do we keep building them? Because if we do not, someone else will. Because the alternative is an invasion that kills millions on both sides. Because once you invent something like this, you cannot uninvent it. Because we are at war, and wars demand terrible choices. Harrison looks down at the components again. The precisely machined metal, the miles of wire, the explosive lenses shaped with mathematical perfection. Beautiful. In its way. Terrible. In every way. The door opens. A courier enters. Young airman with a clipboard. Nervous eyes. Captain Harrison. Sir. Shipment incoming from Los Alamos. Expected arrival 0600 tomorrow. Manifest shows core assembly and final components. Harrison signs the clipboard with a hand that does not quite shake. Thank you. Airman. After the courier leaves, Morrison speaks quietly. So tomorrow we get the heart of it, and then 72 hours until it ships to Tinian. And then, And then someone in Tokyo decides whether to surrender, or someone in Washington decides whether to drop it, or the weather turns bad, or something else we cannot predict. Harrison gathers the tools, begins securing the work area for the night. The bomb casing sits there, open, waiting for its deadly center. Go home, he tells his team. Get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. 90 miles north, in the high desert, mesas where Los Alamos Laboratory perches on the edge of wilderness, another kind of work continues into the night. The compound sprawls across the plateau, a strange collection of hastily built structures housing some of the most brilliant minds in physics, security fences, guard towers, and behind it all, the work that has already changed the world twice and may be about to do so again. In a laboratory with windows looking out over the vast New Mexico darkness, Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer stands alone, cigarette burning between his fingers. He is 41 years old, thin to the point of gaunt, eyes that have seen things no scientist should have to see. Director of the Manhattan Project, father of the atomic bomb, a title he increasingly wishes he did not own. The blackboard behind him is covered in equations and calculations. At the top, in neat columns, 3 simple labels: Device 1, Device 2, Device 3, Trinity, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and now a third. He has just supervised the final preparations for the plutonium core that shipped to Kirtland this afternoon, identical in design to the Nagasaki bomb. Certain to work, certain to kill, the cigarette has burned down to his fingers. He stubs it out, immediately lights another. Chain smoking has become his habit, his crutch, his small rebellion against the enormity of what he has helped create. A knock at the door. One of his senior physicists, Dr. Kenneth Bainbridge, enters. Bainbridge was at Trinity, stood beside Oppenheimer when the first bomb detonated and turned night into day. Now he carries a clipboard and an expression that suggests he brings difficult news. Robert, the core shipped out this afternoon. Final assembly at Kirtland should be complete within 3 days. Oppenheimer nods slowly, exhales smoke toward the ceiling. I know. I signed the authorization. Bainbridge hesitates, then continues. Robert, some of the team, we have been talking about whether we should continue, whether we have the right to keep building these things without questioning their use. Oppenheimer turns to face him fully. We are scientists. Kenneth, we explore what is possible, whether to use what we discover. That is for others to decide. Are we, though, just scientists? Or are we now complicit in every death these weapons cause? The question hangs in the laboratory air. Oppenheimer walks to the window, looks out at the darkness where Trinity site lies some 60 miles south. The place where they proved nuclear fission could be weaponized. The place where he whispered those words from the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." He thought he understood what that meant in July. Now, after Hiroshima, after Nagasaki, after seeing the photographs and reading the casualty reports, he understands it differently, more completely, more terribly. I do not know what we are anymore. Kenneth, Oppenheimer's voice is quiet, almost defeated. I thought we were ending a war, saving lives by making invasion unnecessary. Now I wonder if we have simply taught the world a new way to die, and whether teaching that lesson makes us teachers or murderers. He turns back to Bainbridge. But the Third Corps has shipped. Kirtland will complete assembly, and unless Japan surrenders in the next few days, another city will burn. All we can do now is hope. Hope for what? That our weapon is never used. That seems a strange thing to hope for after spending 3 years building it. Oppenheimer stubs out his second cigarette, lights a third. Not strange, he says finally. Human. We are allowed to regret what we have made, even if we believed it necessary at the time. We are allowed to pray that it becomes unnecessary before it is used again. After Bainbridge leaves, Oppenheimer sits at his desk, pulls out a sheet of laboratory stationery, begins to write in his precise hand a message to be included with the shipment documents, to be seen by the men who will handle the bomb at Kirtland. To the assembly team. This is the third and likely final weapon for some time. What we do with it will define us. May God guide us all. He signs it, seals it in an envelope marked for Captain Harrison's attention, knows it will arrive with tomorrow's courier, knows it will offer no real guidance, no clear answers, but perhaps it will remind them that even the men who invented these weapons are uncertain about their use. Perhaps that is worth something. He returns to the window. The New Mexico night is vast and star-filled and utterly indifferent to human concerns. Somewhere out there, in Niigata or Tokyo or some other Japanese city, 150,000 people are sleeping. Do not know they are marked for potential death. Do not know that in laboratories and assembly buildings and White House offices, men are deciding their fate. Oppenheimer thinks of them, tries to imagine their faces, their lives, their children. Fails. They are too distant, too foreign, too many. That is the problem with these weapons, he thinks. They kill at such scale that individual humanity becomes abstraction. You cannot mourn 1,000 people individually. You can only mourn the idea of them, and that somehow makes it easier to contemplate their deaths. Easier to sign authorizations and ship cores and complete assemblies. He wonders if future generations will understand, will forgive, will see that they were men trying to end a terrible war with terrible means, not monsters seeking to perfect murder, or will they see only the deaths, the weapons, the choice to keep building even after the first 2 bombs fell. He does not know, cannot know, can only do what he has always done, pursue the physics to their logical conclusion, and hope that humanity proves wise enough to handle what science discovers. The hope feels thinner with each passing day. 7,000 miles west, across the Pacific Ocean, across the international dateline where it is already August 13th. Another group of men are making calculations about the 3rd bomb, Tinian Island, a speck of coral and rock in the Marianas, transformed by American military might into the busiest airfield in the world. Rows of B-29 superfortresses, mountains of supplies, and hidden in secure hangars and guarded buildings. The Special Mission Unit that has already dropped atomic bombs on 2 Japanese cities, the 509th Composite Group. Hand-picked crews, special training, absolute secrecy. They have changed warfare forever. Now they wait to see if they will be called upon to do it again. Colonel William Barrett stands in the operations hut, a low building with screens over the windows and a large map of Japan covering one wall. Barrett is 42 years old, veteran of bombing missions over Europe before being selected for this special assignment. He commanded the mission planning for Nagasaki. Now he studies target maps for a potential 3rd strike. Around him, 3 other officers lean over the table. Major Daniel Spencer, Operations Officer, 35. Methodical and precise. Captain Thomas Riley, Pilot, 31, who flew escort for both previous atomic missions. Lieutenant Frank Cooper, Bombardier, 28, whose job it would be to release the bomb if they fly again. The reconnaissance photographs of Niigata are spread across the table, detailed shots taken 2 days ago by high-altitude photo missions. The oil storage tanks are clearly visible, 12 large cylinders arranged in a neat row along the harbor. Perfect target markers. The port facilities, the rail junction, the industrial buildings. All there, all intact, all waiting. Barrett taps the photographs. Weather forecast for the next 5 days. Spencer checks his notes. Broken cloud cover over Honshu through August 16th. Clears on the 17th. Good visibility for visual bombing. Wind from the southwest. Favorable for our approach route, if we get the order. Earliest strike date would be August 17th. Assuming the device arrives on schedule, Riley speaks up, voice quiet. Sir, do we know if the device is actually coming? After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is there really going to be a 3rd? Barrett does not answer immediately. Looks at the map, at Niigata circled in red, at the population estimate penciled in the margin. 150,000. That is the question. Tom, Washington has authorized assembly. Whether they authorize deployment depends on what Tokyo does in the next few days. Cooper joins the conversation. If Tokyo surrenders, we stand down. That is the assumption. But until they actually surrender, we maintain readiness. Prepare as if the mission will fly. Spencer unfolds a larger map showing the flight route. Tinian to Niigata is approximately 1,600 miles. 7 hours flight time at cruise speed. We would launch before dawn. Arrive over target mid-morning when visibility is best. Same procedure as Nagasaki. Lead bomber carries the device. 2 observation planes follow for measurements and photography. We come in from the Sea of Japan side. Minimize our time over defended airspace. Barrett studies the route. Opposition. Japanese air defense is nearly destroyed. We might encounter scattered anti-aircraft fire. Maybe a few fighters if we are unlucky, but nothing like what we faced earlier in the war. They are running out of planes, pilots, and fuel. That makes it easier, Riley says. Then, more quietly, does not make it feel better though. The room is silent for a moment. These are men who have already dropped conventional bombs on Japan, who have seen cities burn from 30,000 feet, who have told themselves it is necessary, that it shortens the war, that it saves American lives. But the atomic bombs are different. The scale is different. The finality is different. Barrett rolls up the maps. Gentlemen, here is what I can tell you. We maintain operational readiness. We continue mission planning. We brief the crews on the assumption that we may fly. But between you and me, I am hoping Tokyo surrenders before we have to load another one of those damn things into a bomb bay. The others nod, share his hope but do not quite believe it. Have learned that hope is a poor substitute for preparation in war. After the briefing ends, Barrett steps outside. The Tinian night is warm and humid, smelling of salt and aviation fuel. In the distance, he can hear the ocean. Closer, the sound of aircraft engines being tested, of men working through the night to keep the war machine running. He thinks about Niigata, has never been there, does not speak Japanese, knows nothing about the city except what reconnaissance photos and intelligence reports tell him. But he knows that if the order comes, he will send planes and crews to destroy it, will coordinate the mission that erases 150,000 lives in a flash of nuclear fire, will do his duty as he understands it, and will live with that for the rest of his life. He lights a cigarette, looks up at the stars, wonders if the men in Niigata are looking at the same stars, unaware that their city has been discussed, evaluated, and selected as a target, unaware that their existence has been reduced to military calculations and weather forecasts. The cigarette tastes like ash. Everything tastes like ash these days, 7,000 miles away. In Niigata, morning has broken clear and warm. The Tanaka family wakes to a day that feels like every other day, which is to say, difficult and uncertain and marked by the small indignities of a nation at war, but still a day, still life continuing. Kenji Tanaka, 48 years old, wakes to pain in his left leg, phantom pain from a leg that is no longer there. Left in China in 1938 when a piece of shrapnel found him during the Second Battle of Nanjing. He sits on the edge of the futon, massaging a thigh that ends 6 inches above where his knee used to be. The wooden prosthetic leans against the wall. He has worn it for 7 years now, long enough that the leather straps are molded to his body, long enough that he can walk almost normally on level ground. Almost. The limp is always there. He straps on the prosthetic, stands, tests his weight. Good enough. Another day. His wife Fumiko is already awake, preparing breakfast in the tiny kitchen. She is 45 but looks older. The war years have worn on her the way they have worn on everyone. Not enough food, too much work, constant worry about what tomorrow might bring. The children sleep in the next room. Yuki, 17, who should be preparing for university, but instead works 12-hour shifts at the munitions factory. Hiroshi, 14, who attends school half days and spends the other half practicing with bamboo spears and learning to throw grenades made from tin cans and black powder. Breakfast is thin rice porridge and pickled vegetables. There is no miso for soup, no fish, though they live in a port city. Everything goes to the military now. Everything. Kenji eats in silence, watching his wife move around the kitchen. They have been married 23 years. She was beautiful once. He thinks, still is, underneath the exhaustion, but the war has taken beauty from everyone. The radio plays in the corner, military music interspersed with announcements. Reports from Manchuria are vague but alarming. The Soviets have entered the war, pouring across the border. Reports from the southern islands are worse. Okinawa, fallen. Iwo Jima, fallen. American submarines everywhere, sinking anything that moves. And the new weapon, the thing they are starting to call Genbaku, atomic bomb. Hiroshima, August 6th, gone in a flash of light. Rumors say 70,000 dead, maybe more, maybe much more. The government says it was a military target, a legitimate attack. But everyone knows Hiroshima had civilians, families, children. Nagasaki, August 9th, another flash, another city erased. Are we next? Fumiko asks quietly, not looking at him. Is Niigata next? Kenji does not know how to answer. We are not important enough, he says finally. Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, those are the cities they want. We are too small, too far north. He does not sound convincing, even to himself. Yuki emerges from the bedroom, dressed in her factory work clothes. Dark cotton pants, baggy shirt, hair tied back. Her hands are scarred from months of assembly work, from handling shell casings and metal parts that are never quite smooth enough, never quite safe. Good morning, daughter. Good morning, father. Is there breakfast? Fumiko serves her a bowl of porridge. Yuki eats quickly, efficiently. She has 20 minutes to walk to the factory. How is the work? Kenji asks. Is the supervisor still pushing too hard? Yuki shrugs. Everyone pushes hard now. They say we need 10,000 more shells. 20,000. The numbers keep growing. They say if the Americans invade, every shell matters. And if they do not invade, if they use more of those atomic bombs instead, Yuki looks at her father, and her eyes are older than her years. Then the shells do not matter. Nothing matters. She pauses, searching for words. We just stop existing. The words hang in the small kitchen like smoke. Hiroshi emerges, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He is at the age where he is all angles and awkwardness, still a boy in a world that is demanding. He become a man before he is ready. School today, he asks. Half day. Fumiko says, then you have drill practice. Hiroshi makes a face. He hates drill practice, hates the bamboo spear training, hates pretending that a sharp stick will stop American tanks. But he does not complain out loud. Complaining is dangerous now. After the children leave, Kenji and Fumiko stand in the kitchen together, not speaking. Through the window, they can see the harbor, fishing boats heading out despite the danger, cargo ships being unloaded. Beyond them, the oil storage tanks, 12 large cylinders gleaming in morning sun. Strategic resource. Military target. Do you think they will come for us? Kenji asks. Really? Fumiko is quiet for a long time. Then, I think they will do whatever they must to end this war, just as we are doing whatever we must. And I think we are very small people in the way of very large forces. She reaches out, takes his hand. Her fingers are rough from work, from rationing soap, from years of making do with less and less. I am frightened, she admits, not of dying, but of the children dying, of this all being for nothing. Kenji squeezes her hand, has no comfort to offer, because there is no comfort. Only the day ahead, and the work, and the hope that somehow this ends before everything ends. He leaves for the shipyard, limping down streets that are eerily quiet for a city of 150,000. So many young men gone to war. So many others working in factories, in fields, anywhere the military needs labor. At the shipyard, his crew is already at work repairing a cargo vessel damaged by submarine attack. The ship lists to one side. Hull breached. Superstructure scorched. They are welding plates, replacing damaged sections, doing what they can to make it seaworthy again, so it can carry one more load of supplies. Make one more run. Maybe sink on that run, but maybe not. His supervisor, an older man named Sato, nods greeting. They work together in silence for an hour before Sato speaks. My cousin was in Hiroshima. Kenji looks up from his welding. Was. All of them. His whole family. Wife. 3 children. The youngest was 5. They found nothing. Not even bodies. Just gone. I am sorry. Sato stares at the ship hull, not really seeing it. What kind of bomb does that? What kind of weapon turns people into nothing? Kenji has no answer. They return to work. Metal on metal. Sparks in the morning air. Ships being repaired for a war that perhaps cannot be won but cannot be surrendered. At lunch, the men gather in the shade of a warehouse, eating rice balls wrapped in newspaper. The talk, as always, turns to the war. The Americans have devil weapons now. One worker says, "They will burn us all. Let them come." Another responds with false bravado, "We will fight on the beaches. Every man, woman, and child. We will make them pay for every inch of Japan. And then we will all be dead," a third man says quietly. "All of us. Is that victory?" Kenji listens, saying nothing. He has seen war up close, has left a leg in China, knows what combat actually means. It is not glorious. It is not noble. It is pain and confusion and the smell of death and the knowledge that nothing you believed about honor prepares you for the reality of metal-tearing flesh. These younger men, the ones talking about fighting to the death, they do not know yet. They will learn, if the Americans come, or they will die before learning. Which is perhaps better. He looks across the harbor to his house. Small, wooden, fragile. Yuki is at the factory now, hands cut and bleeding from shell casings. Fumiko is probably standing in line for rations, trying to trade something for a little more rice, a little more anything. Hiroshi is at school, learning mathematics he will never use and military tactics that will get him killed. A reconnaissance plane passes high overhead, silver glint in blue sky. Everyone looks up. It is American. They can tell by the shape. B-29 Superfortress, flying too high for anti-aircraft fire, photographing the city for reasons no one here understands. Kenji does not know it, will never know it. But that plane is taking pictures of the oil tanks, the harbor facilities, the rail junction, all the things that make Niigata a valuable target. And those photographs will land on a desk in Washington, will be studied by men who are making calculations about acceptable losses and strategic necessity. The plane passes. Work resumes. Life continues. For now, that same morning, in Tokyo, in a palace that has stood for generations, older men are making calculations of their own. The Imperial Palace sits behind moats and walls, a vast compound of traditional buildings in the heart of a capital city that has been burned to ash and rebuilt and burned again over centuries. Today it is burning metaphorically, as Japan's leadership faces decisions that will determine whether the nation survives or dies. In a long room with tatami mats and sliding screens, ministers and military officers sit in formal rows. At the head of the room, on a slightly raised platform, Emperor Hirohito sits in quiet stillness, small of stature, formal in bearing. He has ruled since 1926 but rarely speaks in council. Today, everyone knows, he must speak, must decide. Captain Takeshi Yamamoto stands near the back of the room, at attention, trying to keep his face blank. He is 36 years old, career army officer, graduate of the military academy, son of a samurai family that traces its lineage back 400 years. His father died in the Russo-Japanese War of 1905. His brother died 3 months ago on Okinawa, leading a banzai charge into American machine guns. Yamamoto survived Guadalcanal with a scar across his face and shrapnel in his shoulder. He knows war. He also knows duty. And right now, he is watching duty and war collide in ways that make his ancestors' code seem impossibly simple. The Prime Minister is speaking, voice measured, careful, reporting on communications received through Swiss intermediaries. The Americans and British have issued terms: unconditional surrender, occupation, war crimes trials, but some suggestion, vague and unconfirmed, that the imperial institution might be preserved. The War Minister responds, voice hard, unconditional surrender is unacceptable. We must fight on. One decisive battle on the homeland. Make the cost so high that America negotiates. The Navy Minister, older, more pragmatic, shakes his head. Fight with what? We have no fuel, no ships. The Americans control the seas, the skies. The Soviets have entered the war in Manchuria. We face annihilation from two sides. Better annihilation than shame. The War Minister snaps. Yamamoto feels his jaw tighten. He believes this, has always believed this. Death before dishonor. It is what he was raised to believe. What he taught his younger brother. What his brother died believing. But then the Foreign Minister speaks, and his voice carries a different weight. He has seen the reports from Hiroshima, has read the detailed accounts, not the propaganda versions. 70,000 dead in an instant. 70,000, and radiation sickness killing more every day. Children vomiting blood, mothers holding babies who will not stop crying. And now Nagasaki, another 70,000, perhaps more. And the Americans have more. The Foreign Minister continues quietly. Intelligence suggests they have a third bomb ready. Perhaps more after that. They can destroy our cities one by one. Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, Niigata. Every week, another city. How many must die before we accept the inevitable? The War Minister stands abruptly. We do not surrender. We have 80 million people willing to die for the Emperor. Let the Americans waste their bombs. We will fight them in the ashes. The room erupts in argument. Voices rising. Fists pounding on tables. The careful decorum of court etiquette shattering under apocalyptic pressure. And through it all, the Emperor sits quietly, watching, listening. Yamamoto catches the eye of 3 other officers standing along the wall. They have spoken before, quietly. In rooms where walls do not have ears, they have made plans, contingency plans. If the Emperor orders surrender, if the politicians betray the nation, if duty requires action that defies orders, a coup. The word has not been spoken aloud, but it hangs between them. Seize the palace. Find the surrender recording before it can be broadcast. Give the hardliners time to organize resistance. Save Japan from itself. Yamamoto's hand drifts to his sword. Not the practical military sword, but the family sword, 400 years old. Carried by his great-great-grandfather into battle. Carried by his father into battle against Russia. Now carried by him. A sword that has seen generations of service, of duty, of death with honor. Would his ancestors approve of a coup against the Emperor? Or would they approve of anything that saves Japan from humiliation? He does not know, but he knows he will not stand by while old men surrender a nation his family has served for centuries. The meeting continues, arguments circling, positions hardening, no resolution in sight. Finally, the Emperor raises one hand slightly. The room falls silent immediately. Hirohito's voice, when he speaks, is soft but clear. I will consider all counsel. A decision of this magnitude requires careful thought. We will reconvene tomorrow. Tomorrow, August 14th. One more day. Yamamoto and his fellow conspirators exchange glances. One more day to prepare. One more day to decide if they are patriots or traitors. If history will remember them as heroes or villains. The meeting ends. Men file out. Faces grave. Voices low. The future of Japan balanced on tomorrow's discussions. Yamamoto remains for a moment, looking at the empty seat where the Emperor sat. A living god. They have been taught. A man. He has learned in war. A man trying to save what remains of a nation that has already lost everything except the decision to stop fighting. Outside, Tokyo stretches away in ruins. Whole neighborhoods gone from firebombing, burnt wood and ash. But some buildings remain, some people remain, some hope remains that tomorrow might come. In New Mexico, men are tightening bolts on a bomb casing. In Washington, a president is praying for guidance. In Niigata, a family is eating dinner, unaware that their lives have become a variable in calculations made by strangers. And here in Tokyo, in the heart of power, a decision is forming that will save or damn them all. August 13th, 1945. 4 places, 4 groups of people, one invisible thread connecting them all, pulling tighter with each passing hour. Somewhere a clock is ticking. No one knows exactly when it reaches 0, but everyone can hear it ticking. The race has begun. The telephone rings in the Oval Office at 3:17 in the morning. August 13th. Truman reaches for it before the second ring, knows that calls at this hour bring either catastrophe or something close to it. Mr. President, this is the State Department duty officer. We have received a diplomatic communication through Swiss intermediaries. From Tokyo. Truman sits up fully, turns on the desk lamp. His hand is steady on the receiver, but his heart is not steady. Go ahead. The message is indirect. Sir. Exploratory language. But the Japanese Foreign Ministry has inquired about clarification regarding the status of the emperor under surrender terms. They specifically used the word surrender, not acceptance, not agreement. Inquiry about clarification. Diplomatic language that means everything and nothing. The kind of careful phrasing that can be interpreted as either genuine negotiation or stalling tactic. What is state's assessment? A pause on the line. Then, split opinion. Sir, some analysts believe this represents genuine movement toward acceptance. Others think it is a delaying action while they prepare defenses for invasion. Truman closes his eyes briefly. Of course, split opinion. Nothing is ever clear. Everything is interpretation. Calculation. Educated guess at best. Thank you. Keep me informed immediately of any further communications. He hangs up, stares at the phone as if it might ring again with clearer answers. It does not. Secretary of War Henry Stimson arrives an hour later, moving slowly. He is 77 years old and looks every year of it tonight. His face is drawn, his eyes tired in a way that sleep will not cure. He has served presidents since Theodore Roosevelt. He has seen war from every angle, and he is sick to death of it. They sit in leather chairs near the fireplace, cold and unused in August heat. Between them, on a low table, lies a folder marked with red stripes. Inside, the latest projections for Operation Downfall, the invasion of Japan. Henry, what am I looking at here? What are the real numbers? Stimson opens the folder slowly, as if it contains something that might bite. His voice is measured, but carries an undertone of weariness that age and wisdom bring. Mr. President, the Joint Chiefs estimate American casualties for the invasion of Kyushu alone at 250. Listen. That is killed, wounded, and missing. For the subsequent invasion of Honshu, perhaps another 500,000, perhaps more, and Japanese. Stimson is quiet for a moment. Conservative estimates suggest 2 to 3 million Japanese military and civilian dead. Less conservative estimates go much higher. The Japanese are distributing weapons to civilians, training women and children. They are preparing the entire population for mass suicide defense. Truman stares into the empty fireplace, sees numbers that are not really numbers but human beings. American boys from farms and cities. Japanese families driven to desperation. And if I drop the third bomb, another 100,000 to 150,000 Japanese dead. Likely, in an instant. Then the radiation deaths over weeks and months. But it might shock them into surrender before invasion becomes necessary. Might. That word again. Might. Perhaps. Possibly. Everything in war is conditional until the dying starts. And then it becomes absolute. Stimson leans forward, his hands clasped. Harry, I am an old man. I have advised presidents through the Great War, through the Depression, through this war, and I must tell you something I rarely say to a sitting president, which is, I do not know what the right answer is. I truly do not. Every option leads to death. The question is which path leads to less death, and I cannot tell you with certainty. No one can. The honesty is almost shocking. Truman has grown accustomed to military advisors with clear recommendations, to analysts with confident projections, to generals who believe their plans will work. To have the Secretary of War admit uncertainty is both refreshing and terrifying. Then what do I do? Henry. Stimson stands slowly, walks to the window, looks out at Washington in darkness. When he speaks, his voice is very soft. You make the best decision you can with imperfect information. You pray you are right, and you live with the consequences for the rest of your life. That is what command means. That is what you signed up for when Roosevelt died, and you took this office. He turns back to face Truman. If it helps at all, Harry, I will tell you this. I believe the Japanese are closer to surrender than they have ever been. The Emperor is involved now. That is significant. But the military faction is still powerful. They may yet force a coup, prevent any surrender, so we must be ready to act. But we should also give diplomacy every possible chance. How much time? Days. Perhaps a week at most. The window is very narrow. After Stimson leaves, Truman calls General Leslie Groves. Groves is the hard-driving director of the Manhattan Project, the man who turned theoretical physics into operational weapons in less than 3 years. He answers on the first ring, despite the hour. General, status of the third device. Groves's voice is crisp, military. No waste. Assembly is progressing on schedule. Mr. President, Corps arrived at Kirtland this morning. Integration will be complete within 48 hours. We can have the device at Tinian with strike capability by August 17th. August 17th. 4 days from now. 4 days in which Japan might surrender or might harden resistance. 4 days in which 150,000 people in Niigata will wake up, go to work, eat meals, live lives, completely unaware that their existence has been reduced to a timeline and a target designation. And after the third bomb, General, what is our inventory? Groves pauses. After the third device, Sir, we will not have another weapon ready for approximately 3 to 4 weeks. Production of fissionable material is the limiting factor. Each bomb requires months of preparation. We are not, despite what the Japanese might believe, capable of dropping atomic bombs indefinitely. So the third bomb is critical. Yes, sir. If we use it and they do not surrender, we face a gap before we can threaten them again. If we hold it in reserve and they surrender, it remains available for any future contingency. Future contingency. Military language for the Soviet Union, for the post-war world that is already forming, for threats not yet visible but certainly coming. Continue assembly. Truman orders, but General Groves, I want to be clear. That bomb does not move from Kirtland, does not get loaded on an aircraft, does not leave American soil without my personal authorization. Do you understand? Crystal clear. Mr. President. After the call ends, Truman sits alone with his thoughts. The Oval Office is silent except for the tick of a grandfather clock in the corner. Each tick is a second closer to decision. Each second carries the weight of lives that might continue or might end based on choices made in this room. He opens a desk drawer, pulls out a worn leather Bible. His mother gave it to him when he was 12 years old. He has carried it through artillery battles in France, through political campaigns, through every moment of doubt. The pages fall open to a passage he has marked and remarked over the years. Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time of war, and a time of peace. But it does not say how to know which time is which, does not say how a man decides when killing becomes healing, when war must end for peace to begin. Truman closes the Bible gently, puts it back in the drawer, looks at the photographs of Hiroshima still spread across his desk, and he makes a decision that is not quite a decision yet. A choice to keep options open while hoping they become unnecessary. To continue the assembly while praying it will be stopped by diplomacy. To threaten force while hoping for peaceful resolution. It is not satisfying. It is not clear. But it is the best he can do with the information he has. In the time he has, with the lives that depend on him. Outside, Washington begins to wake to another August morning. Inside, a president sits alone, carrying the fate of cities on his shoulders. 7,000 miles away, Niigata wakes to its own morning. Ignorant and precious in that ignorance. The Tanaka house smells of miso soup. Fumiko has managed to trade half a week's rice ration for a small portion of fermented bean paste, enough to flavor hot water and make something that approaches normal. It is a small victory in a time when victories are measured in spoonfuls. Yuki emerges from the bedroom already dressed for factory work. The dark cotton of her clothes is stained with oil and metal filings that no amount of washing can remove. Her hands, 17-year-old hands that should be soft, are crossed with small scars from sharp edges and hot metal. She sits at the low table, accepts the bowl her mother offers, drinks the soup slowly, savoring the taste of something other than plain water and rice. "How many shells yesterday?" Fumiko asks quietly. 340. We were short of quota. And the supervisor? Angry. Always angry. They say we need more. Faster. Better. But we are working as fast as we can. Kenji limps in from the bedroom, wooden leg creaking slightly. He sits with effort, stretches the stump of his left leg. The pain is worse in the mornings. Phantom sensations from a limb that exists only in memory. The factory should not push so hard, he says. You are children. We are not children anymore. Father, Yuki's voice is not bitter, just factual. The war took childhood. There are no children in Japan now. Only workers and soldiers. Hiroshi stumbles out, still half asleep. He is at the age where growing uses so much energy that he is perpetually tired, perpetually hungry. The war rations mean he is growing up thin and angular, all elbows and knees. School today? He asks through a yawn. Half day. Then drill practice. Fumiko reminds him. Do not forget your training uniform. Hiroshi makes a face. He hates drill practice, hates the bamboo spears, hates pretending that sharpened sticks will stop tanks. But complaining is dangerous and pointless. He nods, accepts his bowl of soup, drinks without comment. The family eats in silence. Outside, the morning sounds of Niigata filter through paper walls, footsteps on streets, distant factory whistles. A vendor somewhere calling out that he has vegetables to trade. Life continuing, because it has no choice but to continue. After breakfast, Kenji and Yuki walk together toward the harbor district. Father and daughter, both going to work in the machinery of war. His limp matches her pace. They do not speak much. What is there to say? At the factory gate, Yuki pauses, looks at her father. Father, if the Americans come, if they use another atomic bomb, will it hurt? Kenji does not know how to answer, has no information about atomic bombs except rumors and fear. But he is her father, must give her something. I do not know. Daughter, but I think it is very fast. Perhaps there is no time for pain. She nods slowly. That is something. I suppose. Better than burning. She means better than firebombing. Better than what happened to Tokyo. Better than burning alive trapped in a wooden house that has become a furnace. The bar for mercy has fallen very low. Be safe today. He tells her, you also. Father. She goes through the gate into the factory compound. He watches until she disappears among the buildings, then continues to the shipyard. The damaged cargo vessel is still listing, still waiting for repairs. Kenji's crew is already at work, welding and cutting, trying to resurrect a ship that may only survive one more voyage before it sinks for good. Sato, his supervisor, waves him over. There is something different in the old man's face today. Not the usual exhausted determination. Something harder. Something like despair trying to disguise itself as resolve. Did you hear the radio this morning? Sato asks. No. What did they say? More talk of negotiations. The government says we are exploring diplomatic options while preparing for decisive battle, which means they do not know what to do. Kenji picks up his welding torch, adjusts his protective mask. Does anyone know what to do anymore? Sato is quiet for a moment. Then, very softly, my wife asked me last night what I would do if the Americans invaded Niigata. I had no answer. Fight. With what? My grandson's bamboo spear. Die bravely. For what purpose? What did you tell her? That I would do my duty, which is what we all say when we have no good answers. They work in silence after that. Metal sparking, the smell of burnt steel in the air. Around them, other crews work on other damaged ships. An endless cycle of repair and destruction and repair again. At midday, the workers gather for lunch, rice balls and weak tea. Rumor spreads through the group like wind through grass. Someone heard from someone who knows someone in Tokyo. The emperor himself is involved in discussions now. The emperor. That changes things. Changes what? Another worker asks. He is a god. Gods do not surrender. Even gods must recognize reality, an older man says quietly. How many cities must burn before we accept that we have lost? Watch your tongue, old man. That is defeatist talk. It is honest talk. We have lost. Everyone knows. The only question is how many more of us die before we admit it. Kenji eats his rice ball and says nothing. He lost his leg in China, lost friends in the Philippines, lost a cousin in the firebombing of Tokyo. He knows what defeat looks like because he has been living in it for years. But knowing and saying are different things. He thinks of Fumiko's question from this morning. Are we next? Is Niigata next? Looks across the harbor at the oil storage tanks. 12 large cylinders, full of fuel that the military desperately needs. Strategic target, military value, all the phrases that mean worth destroying. The oil tanks gleam in sunlight. Beyond them, the city stretches up the hillside. Wooden houses, narrow streets, children playing in alleys, because where else will they play? The city where his family lives, where his ancestors lived, where he hopes his grandchildren will someday live. If there are grandchildren, if there is someday. He finishes his rice ball and returns to work. What else can he do? At the factory where Yuki works, the day grinds forward with mechanical precision. 12-hour shifts broken only by brief meals and bathroom breaks. Assembly line work. Take shell casing from conveyor. Check for defects. Pass to next station. Repeat. 100 times. 200. 300. Until your hands move without thinking, and your mind goes elsewhere just to survive the monotony. Yuki's station is inspection. She holds each shell casing up to light, looks for cracks, for imperfections, for anything that might cause the shell to fail. If she misses a defect, the shell might explode in the barrel of a gun, might kill the soldier firing it. So she looks carefully, every single one. Her supervisor is a woman in her 50s, childless, bitter, fiercely dedicated to production quotas. She walks the line constantly, watching, criticizing, pushing, faster. Girl, the soldiers need these shells. Do you want to be responsible for their deaths? Yuki wants to say that she is 17 and did not start this war and is tired and hungry and her hands hurt. But she says nothing, checks the next shell. And the next, the girl beside her, Michiko, 16 years old, whispers during a brief moment when the supervisor is distant. Did you hear about Keiko? No. What happened? She collapsed yesterday. Tried to hide it. But someone saw. They took her away. Took her where? The hospital. Maybe. Or just sent her home. They do not tell us. Yuki thinks of Keiko. Small. Quiet. Always tired. Gone now. The line continues without her. Someone else will take her place. The shells must be inspected. The war machine must be fed. At the midday break, the workers sit in the courtyard, eating rice balls that are mostly rice hulls with a little actual rice mixed in. A radio plays propaganda news. Victories in Manchuria that everyone knows are actually defeats. Brave defenders in the home islands. The necessity of sacrifice. Then the announcer says something that makes everyone stop eating. Reports continue to arrive from Hiroshima and Nagasaki regarding the enemy's new weapon. While the devastation was significant, the spirit of the Japanese people remains unbroken. We will overcome this challenge as we have overcome all others. Yuki looks around at the other girls, sees her own fear reflected in their faces. Devastation was significant. That is how they describe two cities erased. Significant. One of the older women speaks, voice trembling slightly. My sister lived in Nagasaki. I have not heard from her. I think I will not hear from her. The girls are silent. What words exist for this? Finally, another woman says quietly, at least it was fast. Not like burning, not like starving, just fast. Is that mercy or horror? Yuki cannot tell. Both, perhaps, or neither. The break ends. They return to the assembly line. Shell casings. Hundreds more before the day ends. Thousands more this month. Millions more before the war ends. If it ends, if they live to see it end. Yuki holds up another casing to the light. Looks for cracks. Sees instead a reflection of her own eye. Distorted in the curved metal. 17 years old, and already exhausted in ways that have nothing to do with lack of sleep. She passes the casing to the next station, reaches for another, repeats. This is her war. Not glory, not honor, just repetition and exhaustion, and the fear that one day the light through the factory windows will turn white and impossibly bright, and then there will be nothing at all. In New Mexico, the light through the windows of Kirtland Field's assembly building is the ordinary yellow of August afternoon. But what is happening inside is anything but ordinary. The plutonium core has arrived. Captain Harrison signs for it with hands that want to shake, but do not. Cannot, must not. The courier who delivered it, an Army Air Forces officer from Los Alamos, looks relieved to be rid of his cargo. Be careful with that, he says. Unnecessarily. We know, Harrison replies. Before the courier departs, he hands Harrison a sealed envelope. From Dr. Oppenheimer. Sir. Personal message. Harrison waits until the courier leaves, then opens it, reads the handwritten note inside. To the assembly team. This is the third and likely final weapon for some time. What we do with it will define us. May God guide us all. Signed, J. Robert Oppenheimer. Harrison reads it twice, then calls his team together. Walsh, Chen, and Morrison gather around as he reads the message aloud. When he finishes, the room is silent. Finally, Walsh speaks. Even Oppenheimer is not sure. Even the man who invented these things is asking for God's guidance. What does that mean for us? Chen answers quietly. It means we are not alone in our doubts. It means even the scientists who made this possible struggle with what they have created. That should probably terrify us, but somehow it helps, knowing we are not the only ones asking these questions. Morrison nods slowly. Still does not make it easier, though. Still our hands doing the work. The core sits in its protective casing on the workbench. Small, deceptively simple looking. Just a sphere of machined metal, precisely shaped, perfectly smooth, beautiful in the way that dangerous things can be beautiful. Harrison opens the protective casing slowly. Inside, nestled in foam, the plutonium sphere gleams dully. It is warm to the touch, not hot, but warm, like something alive. Radioactive decay generating heat, the first sign of its terrible potential. All right, he says quietly. By the numbers, slowly, correctly. They begin the process of integrating the core into the bomb assembly. It is delicate work, precise work, work that requires absolute attention, because a mistake here could mean catastrophic failure or worse. The core must fit exactly into the center of the explosive lenses. The neutron initiator must be positioned correctly. The firing circuits must be connected without error. Hours pass. The work is tedious and nerve-wracking in equal measure. Outside, the August sun tracks across the sky. Inside, 4 men create the machinery of apocalypse with steady hands and racing hearts. During a brief break, Morrison speaks. His voice is rough, uncertain. "Cap, I need to tell you something." Harrison looks up. "Go ahead. I almost called in sick today. Thought about it all last night. Just not show up. Let someone else do this. But you did show up." "Yeah, I did. Because..." Morrison struggles for words. "Because if I did not, it would not stop anything. Someone else would do it. And at least if I am here, I know it is done right. That is something. Maybe not much, but something." Chen nods slowly. "I have been thinking the same thing. My parents, they came to America for opportunity, for freedom, and now I am using that freedom to build this." His hand gestures at the bomb. "I do not know if they would be proud or ashamed." Walsh joins in, voice quiet. "My daughter Mary, the oldest, she asked me before I deployed what I do in the army. I told her I am a technician. I fix equipment. She said that is a good job. Daddy, helping fix things." He laughs bitterly. "She thinks I fix things. Maybe I do. Maybe I am fixing the world by giving it a weapon so terrible that no one will dare start another war. Or maybe I am just lying to myself." Harrison sets down his tools, looks at each man in turn. "Listen to me. All of you. We are not philosophers. We are not politicians. We are technicians following orders in a nation at war. The men in Washington, they have information we do not have. They see the whole picture. Our job is to give them options. Build the bomb correctly so it works if they decide to use it. That is all we can control. That is all we are responsible for." "But Cap," Chen says, "if we build it, we are responsible. At least partly. We cannot build the gun and then claim we are not responsible when someone pulls the trigger." The room is silent. Finally Harrison speaks, and his voice carries a weight that surprises even him. "You are right. We are responsible. Every bolt we tighten, every connection we make, we own part of it, and we will live with that. But we will also live knowing that if this bomb ends the war, if it saves American lives and Japanese lives by making invasion unnecessary, then maybe our responsibility includes that too. Maybe," that word again, "maybe," uncertainty dressed up as resolve. They return to work. The core is carefully positioned. The explosive lenses are checked and rechecked. The firing circuits are tested. Everything must be perfect, because imperfection in an atomic bomb is not an option. As evening approaches, a different courier arrives with a message. Harrison reads it again, then reads it aloud to his team. Japanese diplomatic activity suggests possible surrender in process. Continue work, but prepare for possible stand-down order. Walsh lets out a breath he did not know he was holding. "So we might not finish this after all." "We finish it," Harrison says quietly. "Until we get a direct order to stop, we continue. But there is a chance, a real chance, that Japan surrenders before this bomb is ready to use." Morrison looks at the core, at the weapon taking shape. "Good. Let them surrender. Let this thing sit in storage forever. I will gladly have built a bomb that never falls. But what if they do not surrender?" Chen asks. "What if they are stalling? We are still on the clock. Then we finish our work and someone in Washington decides whether to use it. That has not changed. The work continues. But different now. Before, there was grim inevitability. Now there is possibility. The chance that this weapon will be completed, but unnecessary. That the race between assembly and diplomacy might be won by diplomacy. It changes the feel of every movement. Each bolt is tightened with slight hope that it will never matter. Each circuit is tested with quiet prayer that it will never be activated. The work is still professional, still correct, but infused now with the fragile hope that it becomes pointless before completion. They work into the night. The assembly nears 60% completion. Another 36 hours and it will be done. Ready to ship to Tinian. Ready to load into a bomb bay. Ready to fall on a city that has no idea it is marked for death. Outside, stars appear in the desert sky. Inside, fluorescent lights hum and men work, and a weapon takes shape that might never be used, but does not know that yet. The core glows faintly in its cradle, warm and deadly and waiting. The race continues. In Tokyo, night has fallen, and with it comes conspiracy. Captain Takeshi Yamamoto meets with 3 other officers in a small room in the military headquarters building. The walls are thin. They speak in whispers. The other 3 officers, Major Hatanaka, 31, impulsive and passionate. Colonel Arao, 45, calculating and political. Lieutenant Shizaki, 28, quiet but deadly serious. The Emperor will speak tomorrow. Hatanaka says, "We have confirmation. He will order surrender. Then we must act tonight." Arao responds, "Before he can broadcast, before the nation hears." Yamamoto listens, says nothing yet. He is the senior officer in this room by lineage, if not by rank. What he decides will carry weight. Our plan, Shizaki lays out quietly. We seize control of the palace grounds at midnight. Secure the Imperial residence. Locate the recording of the Emperor's broadcast and destroy it. Then issue orders in the Emperor's name for continued resistance. The Eastern Army will follow, most of it, at least. And if the Emperor resists, Yamamoto asks. The 3 other officers look at each other. No one wants to answer that question. Finally, Hatanaka speaks. We are acting to protect him. From weak advisors, from politicians who would surrender Japan's honor, he will understand eventually. Yamamoto stares at the younger officer. You are talking about coercion, about defying the Emperor's will, to save him from his own compassion. Yes. Hatanaka's voice rises slightly. Passion overcoming caution. Sir, you fought at Guadalcanal. You know what defeat means. Your brother died at Okinawa rather than surrender. Would you dishonor his death by accepting surrender now? The invocation of his brother hits like a physical blow. Yamamoto closes his eyes briefly, sees his younger brother's face, hears his last letter. Fight to the end. Takeshi, do not let them make me nothing by surrendering after I am gone. But he also sees something else. The reports from Hiroshima. 70,000 dead in an instant. Children, families, people who did not ask for war, did not start this, did not deserve atomic fire. If we continue fighting, he says slowly, the Americans will drop more bombs, city after city, until there is nothing left. Then we fight in the ruins. Hatanaka says fiercely, we show them that Japanese spirit cannot be broken by any weapon. And how many Japanese must die to prove that point? Yamamoto's voice is harder now. How many cities? How many children? In the name of honor, how many generations do we erase? Arao, the political one, intervenes. Captain Yamamoto, the decision is not whether to fight. That decision was made when we attacked Pearl Harbor. The decision now is whether we fight as a nation or die as slaves. The Americans will not grant us honorable terms. They will hang our leaders. They will destroy our way of life. Is that preferable to death? I do not know. Yamamoto admits. And that admission, that uncertainty, hangs in the room like smoke. The planning continues. Midnight. They will move at midnight. Loyal troops. Secure the palace. Find the recording. Issue orders. Try to seize control of a nation that is already lost, but does not want to admit it. Yamamoto agrees to participate, but as the meeting ends and the officers slip away into Tokyo night, he stands alone for a moment in the empty room, reaches for his sword. The family sword, 400 years old. His hand rests on the hilt, but does not draw it. What would his ancestors say? What would his father say, who died fighting Russians in 1905? What would his brother say, who died fighting Americans in 1945? He does not know, cannot know. They are all dead, and the dead give no advice, offer no absolution. He thinks of Niigata, does not know why that city comes to mind, perhaps because it is far from Tokyo, far from the destroyed cities, far from the battlefields, a place where ordinary people still live ordinary lives, unaware that their existence has become a variable in calculations of war and peace. If the coup succeeds, the Americans will drop another bomb, probably Niigata, probably soon, 150,000 more dead. If the coup fails, Japan surrenders. Occupation, humiliation. But those 150,000 live. Honor versus survival. Death versus shame. The calculations that have driven Japan for centuries, suddenly rendered meaningless by a weapon that makes honor irrelevant. Yamamoto leaves the building. Tokyo stretches away in darkness. Rubble and ruins punctuated by a few lights. A city that has already burned, already died in many ways, still somehow alive. Tomorrow. Everything changes tomorrow. In Washington, it is still afternoon of August 14th. Truman has not slept, has been in meetings, on telephone calls, reading cables, trying to piece together what is happening in Tokyo from fragmentary intelligence and diplomatic whispers. Another cable arrives. He reads it 3 times, trying to parse the careful language. From the Swiss embassy in Tokyo, Japanese Foreign Ministry has indicated Emperor Hirohito will make a statement to the nation on August 15th. Nature of statement, unconfirmed, but strongly suggests acceptance of surrender terms with understanding that imperial institution will be preserved. Suggests, strongly, understanding. Every word qualified. Hedged, uncertain. Secretary of State James Burns enters the Oval Office with his own assessment. Mr. President, this is as close to confirmation as we are likely to get before the actual broadcast. The Emperor is going to order surrender. Are we certain? As certain as diplomacy allows, which is to say, not completely, but the signals are consistent. Truman stands, walks to the window, looks out at the afternoon sun over Washington. Somewhere in Tokyo, it is already August 15th. Morning. Hours from the broadcast that might end this war. And the third bomb. Burns checks his notes. General Groves reports assembly is approximately 60% complete. Estimates 72 hours to full operational capability. Could be ready by August 17th if needed. 2 days after the Japanese broadcast. 2 days too late if they surrender. 2 days perfectly timed if they do not. The decision forms slowly. Not a dramatic moment. Just a gradual recognition that he must give diplomacy its chance while keeping military options available. Truman returns to his desk, looks again at the photographs of Hiroshima, thinks of Niigata's 150,000, who are sleeping now, who will wake tomorrow to either continuation or transformation. He does not place the call to Groves yet, does not halt assembly, but he makes a different decision. A decision to wait, to watch, to see what Tokyo does before he commits to another atomic strike. It is not mercy exactly, not compassion in any sentimental sense, just calculation that diplomacy might work if given hours more time. And if it does not work, the bomb will still be there, still an option, still a threat that hangs over Japan's decision-makers. The race continues, but Truman has decided to let it run a little longer before declaring a winner. Night falls across the Pacific, in multiple locations. People prepare for August 15th in different ways. In New Mexico, Harrison's team works through the night, making steady progress on an assembly that might or might not be needed. In Tokyo, Yamamoto and his conspirators check weapons and coordinate forces for a coup that might save or doom their nation. In Niigata, the Tanaka family prepares for bed, unaware that tomorrow brings an imperial broadcast that will change everything. And in Washington, a president sits awake, watching clocks, reading cables, waiting for Tokyo to make the move that will determine whether he orders one more city destroyed or whether the killing finally stops. The night passes slowly. Dawn approaches. August 15th, 1945. The day everything changes. The race between war and peace approaches its finish line. No one knows who will cross first, but everyone knows the result will define generations. Tokyo, midnight between August 14th and 15th. Captain Takeshi Yamamoto stands in the shadows outside the Sakashita Gate with 30 soldiers, about to participate in something that will either save Japan or condemn it. The Imperial Palace sits behind moats and walls, ancient stones bearing witness to centuries of history. Tonight they will witness attempted revolution. The plan is precise: seize palace grounds, cut communications, find the emperor's surrender recording, and destroy it. Hold until morning, then issue orders in the emperor's name for continued resistance. Simple in theory, but theories rarely survive contact with reality. Yamamoto gives the signal. Soldiers move forward quietly. They encounter the first Imperial guards near the inner gate. A young guard lieutenant steps forward, rifle ready but not quite pointing. "Captain, you cannot proceed. These grounds are restricted. By order of the Eastern Army Command, we are securing the palace for His Majesty's protection." Yamamoto says. His voice is steady, but his heart pounds. "Step aside." "Lieutenant." The guard does not move. "Sir, I respectfully decline. My orders come from the Emperor himself. No one enters without his permission." This is the moment where conspiracy becomes coup, where whispered plans become open rebellion. Major Hatanaka pushes forward, pistol raised. "Out of the way. We act to save Japan." And then a voice cuts through darkness. Older, harder, carrying absolute authority. "Major Hatanaka, Captain Yamamoto, stand down immediately." General Shizuichi Tanaka emerges from shadows, flanked by a dozen more guards. He is 60 years old, commander of the Eastern Army, 40 years of service to the Emperor carved into his granite face. "This coup ends now," he says quietly, "before dishonor becomes treason, before loyalty becomes shame." Hatanaka's pistol wavers. "Sir, we are acting to preserve Japan's honor. You are acting to destroy it." General Tanaka steps closer, unflinching. "You would drag the emperor into your madness. You would defy his will. That is not honor, Major. That is cowardice dressed in brave words." Yamamoto watches this confrontation and feels something crack inside. Sees his brother's face. Hears his final letter demanding he fight to the end, but also sees Hiroshima, 70,000 dead, and Niigata, a city he has never visited but somehow represents all the cities that might burn if this continues. The emperor has chosen. General Tanaka continues. He has chosen to save his people, to spare them from atomic fire, to endure humiliation so Japan might survive. And you would deny him that choice. You would force him to watch city after city burn because you cannot accept reality. "But sir," Hatanaka's voice breaks, "the Americans will destroy us. Occupation, trials, the end of everything we are. Perhaps, but there will still be Japanese people, still children to grow up, still a future. Even if it is not the future we wanted, that is what the emperor has chosen. Survival over pride, life over death." The general's hand rests on his sword, not threatening but present, a reminder that he too will draw steel if necessary. But for the opposite purpose. Yamamoto feels the weight of his family sword, 400 years old, carried through generations. What would his ancestors want? Victory or survival? Honor or continuation? He does not know, but he knows what his brother would want. His brother who died at 23, who will never marry, never have children, never see whatever Japan becomes. His brother would want Japan to have a future, even if that future includes surrender. Yamamoto's hand falls away from his sword. He steps forward, away from Hatanaka, away from the conspiracy. "General Tanaka," he says quietly, "I stand down. This coup is finished." Hatanaka spins toward him. "Captain, your brother died for Japan, and I will live for Japan. There is a difference." Yamamoto turns to the soldiers who followed him. Young men, frightened men, men who wanted to believe there was still a way to win. "Go home," he tells them. The war is over. Accept it with what dignity we have left. Some soldiers lower weapons immediately. Relief visible. Others hesitate, looking to Hatanaka for direction. But Hatanaka is staring at Yamamoto with betrayal in his eyes. You swore an oath. You promised to fight to the end. I am fighting. Just not the way you want me to. Yamamoto's voice is tired but steady. I am fighting for a Japan that still exists tomorrow. That is all I have left to fight for. Hatanaka raises his pistol again, this time pointing at his own temple. If Japan surrenders, I will not live to see it. Major, do not. Tanaka's voice carries urgency. Your death serves nothing. Live. Help rebuild. That is harder than dying and more necessary. For a long moment, Hatanaka stands with pistol pressed to his head. Then, slowly, he lowers it, falls to his knees, begins to weep. The coup collapses. Soldiers lay down weapons. Officers bow in apology or shame or both. The guards move to secure the conspirators. Gently but firmly, General Tanaka approaches Yamamoto. You made the right choice. Captain, a hard choice, but right. Will history agree? History will judge us all. But the Emperor will live. Japan will live. That is what matters now. Yamamoto is taken into custody with the others. Not harshly, not as traitor, but held until the situation stabilizes. As he is led away, he looks back at the palace compound. Ancient stones and traditional architecture that have survived wars and earthquakes and centuries. Perhaps they will survive this too. In a secure room deep within the palace, 2 lacquered discs sit in a wooden box, the Emperor's voice pressed into grooves of shellac, speaking of enduring the unendurable, of accepting what cannot be changed, of choosing survival over empty glory. The recording is safe, guarded through the night. Tomorrow at noon, Japan will hear its Emperor for the first time. We'll hear him order surrender. We'll hear the end. But tonight, the message is protected. The coup has failed. Peace has been given its chance. Dawn breaks over Tokyo. At that same moment, half a world away in a different kind of room, another phone call is changing history. In the assembly building at Kirtland Field, Captain Harrison is checking the latest measurements when the phone rings. He answers, listens. His face changes through several expressions. Disbelief, confusion, something that might be relief. He hangs up slowly, turns to his team. That was Washington. The Japanese government is preparing to announce surrender. The Emperor will broadcast acceptance of Allied terms in approximately 10 hours. We are to continue assembly for now, but prepare for possible halt order pending confirmation. The words hang in fluorescent lit air. Walsh speaks first, voice uncertain. So we might not finish. We might not. Harrison sounds like he cannot quite believe his own words. If the broadcast happens as expected, if it clearly indicates surrender, we will likely receive orders to halt before completion. Morrison sits down heavily, puts his face in his hands. After a moment, his shoulders begin shaking. Chen leans against the workbench, staring at the partially assembled bomb. All this work, all this moral struggle, and it might not be needed. Is that victory or just postponement? Harrison does not have an answer. They stand or sit in silence, each processing differently. The bomb is perhaps 12 hours from completion. The Emperor's broadcast is 10 hours away. The race has come down to hours, minutes, perhaps. Continue working. Harrison finally says, until we get official orders to stop, we proceed, but slower. Someone should probably go pray or something. I do not know. This is not something they trained us for. They return to their stations, but the work has changed. Each movement now carries the weight of uncertainty. Each connection might be the last one needed or might be pointless. They work carefully, but without the previous urgency. Outside, the New Mexico night begins to lighten toward dawn. August 15th arrives, the day that will determine whether their work ends in storage or in clouds of atomic fire over Niigata. In Niigata itself, morning breaks with no sense of the momentous. The Tanaka family wakes to what seems like another day. Kenji strapping on his wooden leg, Fumiko preparing thin breakfast. Yuki and Hiroshi emerging from sleep into another day of factory work and school and bamboo spear drills. But the radio announcement changes everything. At noon, a special broadcast. All citizens must listen. The Emperor will address the nation. The words settle over the kitchen like snow. The Emperor has never spoken directly to the people. Never. For him to break that tradition means only one thing. What do you think he will say? Hiroshi asks. Kenji does not answer immediately. Looks at his wife. Sees his own understanding reflected. I think he will tell us the war is ending. Surrender. The word is almost whispered. Kenji nods slowly. They eat breakfast in near silence, each thinking about what surrender means. Occupation by Americans. Trials for leaders. Unknown future. But also, no more atomic bombs. No more cities erased. No more children sent to fight tanks with bamboo spears. The balance between shame and survival. At 11:30, work stops throughout Niigata. Across the city, people gather around radios. In homes, factories, schools, shops. Wherever there is a radio, there are people waiting. The Tanaka family sits in their house. Tension like a physical presence. At exactly noon, static clears. An announcer's voice, formal and trembling. His Majesty the Emperor will now address the nation. Then a voice that no common Japanese person has ever heard. Thin, formal, speaking an archaic court language that is difficult to parse. But the meaning comes through gradually. Enduring the unendurable, bearing the unbearable. The war situation has developed not necessarily to Japan's advantage, accepting the Allied proclamation. Formal language for surrender. Fumiko begins to weep. Not from pure sorrow, from relief, from exhaustion, from the sudden release of years of pressure. Yuki puts an arm around her mother, says nothing. What words exist? Hiroshi looks confused, then frightened. Father, what happens now? Kenji does not answer immediately. Sits staring at the radio as the Emperor's voice continues. Speaks of sacrifice, of peace, of preserving the nation. When the broadcast ends, when the Emperor's voice fades into static and silence, Kenji finally speaks. Now we survive, he says quietly. That is what happens now. We survive. Outside, the sounds of Niigata change. At first, just silence, shock settling over the city. Then, gradually, sounds return. Different sounds, some crying, some talking in groups, some simply standing in streets, trying to understand what peace means after years of war. Kenji walks to the door, slides it open, looks at the harbor, the oil storage tanks gleaming in afternoon sun, cargo ships at dock, shipyard cranes idle. Everything looks the same, but nothing is the same. Yuki joins him. Father, did we lose? Kenji is quiet for a long moment. We lost the war, but we won survival. Right now. Daughter. That feels like enough. They stand together, father and daughter, looking at a city that continues to exist, that will wake up tomorrow and the day after, that has been given the gift of continuation. They do not know, will never know in this moment, how close they came, how the third atomic bomb was being assembled for them, how only surrender stopped it, how their existence continued by hours and choices made in distant rooms by people they will never meet. They only know the war is over and they are alive and tomorrow is possible. For now, that is everything. In Washington, word reaches Truman at dawn his time. The Emperor's broadcast has occurred. Japan has accepted surrender. Secretary Burns delivers the news personally. Mr. President, Japan has surrendered. The war is over. Truman sits very still for a moment, then stands, walks to the window, looks out at Washington as the sun rises. The war is over. 4 years of global conflict. Millions dead. And now, finally, ended. Not with last battles or final invasions, but with words, with diplomacy, with an emperor choosing his people's survival over his nation's pride. After a long moment, Truman turns back to Burns. The third bomb. What is its status? Assembly is approximately 70% complete. Sir. Not yet operational. Truman picks up the phone, asks the operator for General Groves. When Groves answers, Truman's voice is steady and clear. General Groves, this is the President. Japan has surrendered. I want assembly of the third device halted immediately. The war is ending. There will be no additional atomic strikes. Secure the device. Secure the core. Stand down the assembly team. This is a direct order. Sir. Groves sounds surprised, though he must have anticipated this. Yes. Mr. President, I will issue orders immediately. After hanging up, Truman returns to his desk, pulls out Hiroshima photographs one last time, studies them, thinks of Niigata, the city that will never know it was marked. The 150,000 who will wake tomorrow and go to work and live lives because history turned toward peace instead of toward one more atomic cloud. He has made many decisions in 4 months as president, decisions about invasions and bombs and the fate of nations. But this decision, the decision to stop, feels like the first one he can live with completely. No more cities will burn. No more children will be shadows on concrete. The atomic age has begun and cannot be stopped. But today, at least, he has stopped one more use of these terrible weapons. It will have to be enough. He opens his diary, begins to write. August 15th, 1945. Japan has surrendered. I have ordered the third atomic bomb assembly halted. The war is over. God be praised. I do not know if I made all the right choices. I know I made the choices I believed necessary at the time. History will judge. But today, I can say I am grateful. Grateful the killing has stopped. Grateful that Niigata, wherever it is, will continue to exist. Grateful that perhaps now we can begin to build something better than what we had before. In New Mexico, the phone call comes through at 5 a.m. local time. Harrison answers, already knowing what it will say, but needing to hear it anyway. This is General Groves. Japan has surrendered. Presidential order. Cease all assembly work immediately. Secure the device and core. The war is over. Harrison turns to his team, who have been working all night, who are exhausted and morally drained and carrying weights they will bear for life. It is over, he says simply. Japan surrendered. We stop now. The bomb will not be used. The 4 men stand in sudden silence. Then Walsh laughs, a sound half sob, half release. Morrison slumps against the workbench. Chen closes his eyes, lips moving in what might be prayer. Harrison looks at the incomplete weapon, metal and wiring and explosive lenses, the core glowing faintly in its cradle, a bomb that came within hours of completion, that was destined for a city but will now sit in storage, a weapon that will never kill because peace came first. They begin the process of securing everything, disconnecting systems, placing the core in protective storage, beginning the paperwork that will document a weapon that was almost used but was not. Outside, the sun rises over New Mexico. A new day. The first day of peace in 4 years. Inside, 4 men who almost killed 150,000 people are learning to live with the fact that those 150,000 will live. It is a strange burden, relief and residual guilt mixed. But it is a burden they will carry gratefully, because the alternative was worse. 10 years later, autumn 1955. The truth emerges. Kenji Tanaka, now 58, sits in his house reading the newspaper. The war is distant memory now. Japan has rebuilt under American occupation and then independence. Life has found new rhythms. The newspaper headline stops him cold. Declassified documents reveal third atomic bomb was prepared for Niigata. He reads the article 3 times. Target maps, assembly records, Truman's diary entries, his city, his family, marked for death, scheduled for August 17th, 2 days after the surrender. So close. Fumiko enters, sees his face. What is wrong? He hands her the paper without speaking, watches her read. Watches, understanding dawn. We were next, she says quietly. Niigata was next. Their daughter Yuki arrives for visit. 27 now. Married. Pregnant with first child. She sees the newspaper. Reads. The date. August 17th. I would have been at the factory. Hiroshi at school. We would have. She cannot finish. Kenji stands slowly. Walks to window. Looks at Niigata spread before him. Rebuilt. Growing. Modern. His grandchild will be born here in 3 months. None of it would exist if the emperor had waited 2 more days. If Truman had made a different choice. If assembly had been faster. So many ifs. An American journalist comes to interview him the next day. Mr. Tanaka, how do you feel knowing your city was targeted? Kenji considers carefully. I feel grateful, and I feel sorrow for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They suffered so we would not have to. Do you hate Americans? Long pause. I hate war. I am grateful for peace. Americans, Japanese. We are all just people. The bombs, the killing. That was war. Now we have peace. I prefer peace. The journalist writes, your daughter is pregnant. Yes. Due in 3 months. Do you ever think about what might have been if the surrender had come 2 days later? Every day. Kenji admits. Every single day since I read that article, my grandchild would not exist. My children would not exist. I would not exist. This house, this street, this city, gone. Shadows on concrete. He pauses, emotion thick in voice. But we are here. We live. And I think that is what the emperor meant when he spoke of enduring the unendurable. We endured the possibility of death. Now we must endure the knowledge of how close it came. Fumiko speaks quietly from doorway. We were fortunate. But fortune is not why we survived. We survived because Emperor Hirohito chose peace. Because President Truman chose to wait. Because somewhere, someone decided that enough death had occurred. After the journalist leaves, the family sits together in silence. 3 generations, if you count the unborn grandchild. 3 generations that almost did not exist. Yuki places hand on her belly. Feels movement inside. This child will live because of timing. Because of choices made by strangers. Because war ended hours before the bomb was ready. It is a strange burden to carry. Gratitude for mercy you never knew you received. But it is a burden she will carry gladly if it means her child lives. Halfway around the world, in Independence, Missouri, an elderly man sits at desk writing memoirs. Harry S. Truman, now 71, retired to the life he knew before war changed everything. But war never really leaves, especially when you made the decisions he made. He writes slowly, carefully, about the atomic bombs, about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, about the 3rd bomb that was never used. People often ask if I would have dropped the 3rd bomb. If Japan had not surrendered on August 15th, if the device had been completed, the answer is, I believe I would have. I believed then, as I believe now, that the bombs ended the war faster and with less total death than invasion would have caused. But I am profoundly grateful I did not have to make that decision. The Japanese surrendered in time. Niigata was spared. He pauses, pen hovering. The people of Niigata lived. 150,000 human beings who woke up on August 15th and heard their emperor order surrender and continued to live because that surrender came before the bomb was ready. I think about them sometimes. Wonder if they know how close they came. Wonder if it is better to know or better to live in ignorance. I leave that question to history. He signs the page, dates it, November 1958, files it with his other papers. Through window he can see Independence. Normal Missouri town. Normal people living normal lives. Because the war ended when it did. How it did. He thinks of all the American boys who came home, who married, had children, built lives, who exist because fighting stopped in August instead of continuing into 1946. And he thinks of Niigata, city he never visited, never will visit, city that exists in his mind as symbol, The place that was almost destroyed, but was not. The lives that almost ended, but did not. Did he make right choice to wait those last hours? He believes so. Cannot prove it. Never will know what would have happened if he had ordered the bomb dropped before Japan surrendered. You just live with choices. Learn from them. Try to be wiser. The third atomic bomb was that kind of choice. The kind you never quite know was right. You just hope it was. That hope has to be enough. In Tokyo, 1959, a man sits in small apartment writing statement for tribunal records. Captain Takeshi Yamamoto, now 50 years old, was arrested after the failed coup, held for months, eventually tried for conspiracy, but received light sentence given his ultimate decision to stand down. He served 2 years, was released, now works as schoolteacher, teaching history to children who do not remember war. He writes about that night, August 14th to 15th, 1945. I believed I was saving Japan by preventing surrender. I believed death was preferable to shame. I was wrong. He pauses, considers what to write next. The emperor saved more than his people that night. He saved me from becoming a murderer. If the coup had succeeded, if we had prevented the surrender broadcast, the Americans would have dropped another atomic bomb. Probably on Niigata. Probably within days. 150,000 more dead because I could not accept reality. I would have been responsible for that. He sets down pen, looks at photograph on desk. His brother, young and proud in uniform, taken months before Okinawa. I am sorry. Brother, I failed to honor your death the way you wanted. But I could not let more cities burn, could not let more families die. Perhaps you would have made same choice if you had lived to see Hiroshima. Perhaps not. I will never know. He finishes statement, signs, submits to tribunal, goes to school, teaches children about war so they will know what to avoid, teaches them that sometimes greatest courage is knowing when to stop fighting. The present day, Niigata, Japan, population now over 800,000. The city stretches along coast, modern and thriving, glass buildings and ancient temples, bullet trains and traditional markets, a city that grew through peace instead of being erased by war. In small museum dedicated to local history, there is single exhibit about third atomic bomb. Not large, not prominent, just corner with photographs and documents and simple plaque. Niigata was designated primary target for third atomic bomb. Assembly was halted, August 15th, 1945, when Japan accepted surrender. Bomb was never used. City survived. Visitors passed through. Some stop, read, move on. Others pause longer, trying to imagine what was almost lost. An elderly woman stands before exhibit for long time. She is 87 years old. In 1945, she was 17, working munitions factory. Her name is Yuki, though she carries married name now. Her grandson stands beside her, 20 years old, university student, born into Japan that has never known war. Grandmother, he asks quietly, did you know when it was happening? No, she says. We knew nothing. Thought we were safe because Niigata was not important enough. We were very wrong. But you survived. We survived because war ended in time. Your great-grandfather, your great-grandmother, your granduncle? All of us. We survived because Emperor chose peace and American president stopped the bomb. She thinks of her father, dead now 20 years. Thinks of life he lived after war. Grandchildren he met. Great-grandchildren he held. None of it would have existed if calendar had turned differently. Her grandson reads plaque again. It says bomb was 90% complete. That is very close. Hours. Yuki says, we survived by hours. Are you angry? At the Americans who built it. She considers this, has had 70 years to consider it. No, I am not angry. I am grateful. Grateful that Emperor Hirohito chose peace. Grateful that President Truman stopped assembly. Grateful that someone decided enough death had occurred. Anger serves nothing now. Memory serves everything. They walk outside together into Niigata afternoon. Harbor spread before them, busy with commerce and life. Where oil tanks once sat, now there is park. Where military facilities once prepared for invasion, now there are schools and shops. The city that was marked for death is instead full of life. Yuki thinks of all the people around her, walking, talking, living. 800,000 lives. How many exist because of that choice in August 1945? Impossible to calculate. But the number is not small. Every person here carries in some way the legacy of being spared. Her grandson asks one more question. Do you think about it often? How close you came? Every day. Yuki admits. Every single day of my 70 years since. Every morning I wake. I think, this is day I almost did not have. Every time I held my children. Every time I held you. I thought, this is moment I almost missed. Every sunset. Every meal. Every simple, ordinary day. All of it borrowed time. Time I was given because history chose peace. Is that burden? He asks. She smiles slightly. It is gift. Perhaps greatest gift anyone can receive. The gift of life when death was prepared. Gift of tomorrow. When today was almost last day. Yes, it is heavy to carry, but I carry it gladly. They walk along harbor, grandmother and grandson, past children playing, past vendors selling food, past ordinary miracle of city that lives. Above them, sky is clear blue. No contrails, no bombers, just sky. And somewhere in that sky, invisible but present, is ghost of bomb that never fell, weapon that existed, that was ready, that had target and date and purpose, but never completed its terrible journey. The third atomic bomb exists now only in memory and documents and museum exhibits. Never fell, never exploded, never turned city into ash. It remains most powerful weapon never used. The destruction that did not occur, the death that was prepared but not delivered, and in its silence, in its absence, it speaks louder than any explosion could. It says war can end before total destruction, that mercy can come even in darkest hour, that cities can be spared even after being marked, that peace is possible even when annihilation seems inevitable. Niigata lives because someone stopped, because someone said enough, because in August 1945, in rooms far away, in decisions made under impossible pressure, peace won race against death, by hours, by choice, by mercy. The city that was almost destroyed instead survived to become testament to what happens when war stops instead of escalating, when third bomb remains unfired, when tomorrow is given instead of taken away. 800,000 people live in Niigata today. None of them know, not really, how close they came to never existing. But perhaps they all know, in some deep way, that life is precious exactly because it is fragile, that peace matters exactly because war is so terrible, that every ordinary day is extraordinary when you remember it almost did not happen. The sun sets over Niigata. City lights begin to glow. Life continues. The third atomic bomb, the weapon that was ready, the destruction that was prepared, remains forever on edge of history, real but unused, terrible but silent, a reminder that most important explosions are sometimes ones that never occur. And in that silence, in that absence, in that space where death was planned but life was given instead, there is truth worth remembering. The race between war and peace is never truly over, but sometimes, by hours or by choice or by grace, peace wins, and cities live, and children grow, and tomorrow comes after all.